It's your Locked On Flyers podcast for Wednesday, August 31st, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content. That is so thrilled to welcome Joe Yerdon to the show to talk about the Sabres, the Flyers, and so much more.
It'll be fun.
Your Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here as always with Russ Cohen, who's on Twitter at Sportsology. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. You can follow us on Twitter at Locked On Flyers. You'll keep up to date on all the Flyers news and our episodes. You can also email the show at lockedonflyers@gmail.com. On today's show, we do have a signing to talk about. Very excited about that. Our last man standing.
Yep.
And then we will get directly into the first part of our conversation with Joe Yerdon. We had such a good time talking to him. We're going to actually make it two parts, and you'll have bonus time with him on another day. Locked On Flyers is free and available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Odyssey, wherever you're listening. So subscribe. You'll get all of our episodes here on the Locked On Podcast Network. All right, Russ, Hayden Hodgson, our last remaining RFA, got that contract, and it was a Chuck Fletcher go-to move. It's a 2-year, two-way, one-way contract, $800K for the NHL salary. And we were getting a little nervous for Hayden there, but he got it done.
Yep. It was one of those rubber stamp contracts that Chuck seems to be doing. But no, I'm happy for him because I felt like out of a lot of players last year, he had a lot to prove, right? Because if he didn't do anything with the Flyers last year, I don't think they're re-signing him for this year. And maybe he doesn't even get any other shots at the NHL ever again. Like, that's just the way his career has gone. He's had such a sojourn to get here that, I felt good for him. It's one of those stories that you really like. And so you root for guys like that. And so, yeah, I'm rooting for him. Maybe Torts finds something in him and says, I like you better than, and it could be, it could be Zach McEwen. He might say, hey, this guy gives me more scoring opportunity and, Zach doesn't. Who knows? But there is a possibility that he could work out with this coach, with the type of hockey that he plays, and the fact that, as a bigger guy, he does tend to score goals around the net. It's not going to be a lot, but hey, he gets a shot now.
He does. And of course, he was sort of a journeyman in the ECHL for a little bit there, got a shot with the Reading Royals, who then, sent him up to the Phantoms, where, he was second on the Phantoms in goals for this past season in 46 games, which is pretty remarkable. 19 goals in 46 games for an ECHLer, as he was being touted. He had a goal and 2 assists in 6 games for the Flyers, which I think, definitely proved that he could hang. And so that's what got him the contract.
Yeah, and he could hang, and if he had a really good summer, he's a guy that preseason will matter to make, to try and this is a new coach, and you hope that this new coach doesn't have a lot of these spots mentally filled in his head already, so a guy like this has a chance.
Yeah, I definitely love what competition is coming up at training camp. It should be a lot of fun. All right, with that, we are going to head directly into our conversation with Joe Yerdon. All right, so we are thrilled to welcome back to Locked On Flyers, Joe Yerdon from Bleacher Report and Maintenance Day podcast. Joe, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's we're getting the machine fired up here for hockey, because I looked at the calendar and oh boy, it's almost here. I can't believe it.
It's close.
It's creepily close.
All right. Of course, you are known, I would say, for the most part, for covering the Sabres. So, how goes it in Sabres land? How are people feeling about the offseason?
They're I don't think the offseason was very exciting for people, but I think they're just excited about the team in general, based on how they wrapped up the season last year and how exciting it was to see Tage Thompson break out the way he did. Coming out of the blue to score 38 goals. I mean, he scored more goals than I think he had points in the NHL his previous 3 or 4 seasons. So it's wild. But with him, Jeff Skinner looked like the Jeff Skinner of old last year. And everybody loves hearing "Party of the USA" at home for his goal song. So there was that. And Alex Tuck really embraced coming to Buffalo. I mean, he's from outside Syracuse and grew up a Sabres fan. And, they showed off all the pictures of him wearing the old goat head jersey and talking about those, the 06 team. Like, he loved the 06 team. And I'm like, are you even old enough to have seen the 06 team? I'm like, yeah, no, he was. But, Kyle Pozo had a great season. People love seeing that. Everybody loves Kyle. So a lot of reasons to be excited about the team. They got some young guys coming. Darlene looked fantastic at the end of last year. So a lot of reasons for people to be excited about them. I hope it doesn't lead to expectations being too high for them right now. But there's a lot to like about this group because they seem to like each other. Winning helps that, but there are some guys that are really worked out well last year that you hope can continue to do that next season or this season. Oh my God, I'm still caught up between seasons here. Jeez.
Yeah, that's okay. Talking about one of their prospects, Jack Quinn, had a great year with Rochester. The question is, I don't believe he's a center. I know there was a time they thought that maybe they were going to try him out at center. Are they finally realizing, hey, he's going to be a wing, and does he have a chance to make this team as a winger, or is he going back to Rochester?
Well, to answer the position question, they tried him at center a couple different times. Mostly the beginning, in camp last year, they're like, all right, let's see what he can do at center. And I was like, guys, listen, if you want to get a center in there, draft a center. You had multiple centers you could have drafted at that spot. You picked a guy that's a 50-goal winger in the OHL. Play him at the wing because that's where he's good. They're like, oh, we got to see what he's doing. And it's like, yeah, whatever. I guess with Thompson, it worked out great because he was a winger forever. They put him at center, and he's a dynamic center. So, but they tried it. It wasn't the right fit. He's a winger. Now, does he make the team? The way he performed last year, I would say he absolutely has to make the team. But they basically brought back the same exact roster as they did last year, and it's going to be the competition's going to be very stiff. But I don't know. I don't know if this is like a great plan by them to make it so that us, line maker people in the beginning of the season have like a hard time trying to figure it out. But
it's top 9 or bust for him, right? You can't put him on a 4th line. So
I would almost say I would need him in the top 6. I think top 9's probably okay. Granato's, when it comes to divvying up the minutes, Granato's a little bit more relaxed with that. Like he's not as hard of a play the top 2 lines for 20 minutes, 3rd line gets 12 minutes, 4th line gets 8 minutes. Like he's not that, he doesn't roll the guys that way. He's still pretty fair about, equal time and all that stuff. But I almost feel like I need to see Quinn on that 2nd line because I don't think anybody's touching the 1st line. It's Skinner, Thompson, Tuck. I think that's set in stone. 2nd and 3rd lines get a little bit different. I think it's open for interpretation there. So, but yeah, to me, Quinn has to make the team. I just don't see what else he has to gain by going back to the AHL, but still a possibility it could happen. I think he's going to be the guy that's going to have his hair is going to be on fire because he didn't score any goals in the playoffs, the AHL playoffs, and he wasn't hurt, because the way his luck was going, we were thinking like, well, he's got to be playing hurt. Something's got to be wrong. He wasn't hurt for the whole playoffs, and he finally looked good in that last series against Utica. Laval. He looked good against Laval, had some bad luck there, but still didn't score any goals. So he's been really good about answering mistakes, well, not mistakes, but just tough times. His first AHL season, that weird, the weird shortened season.
And he scored some goals that year. Yeah.
He did, but it was a horrible season. Like he
Yeah.
had a very bad season. Hot take alarm coming through here, but
Hot in Buffalo.
Yeah, it's our maintenance day thing that every time the fire engines go by, it's the hot take alarm. So, but Quinn had a very rough time that first AHL season. Which I mean, listen, he's 19. You're 19 playing the AHL. That's hard.
Yeah,
that's really hard. So, but he bounced back with a monster year last year. So, I'm pretty confident that he's gonna make the NHL team and he's gonna have a very strong year. But that's just me. And again, that hot take.
No, I think it's possible.
I love myself. So
we'll be back with more with Joe Yerdon coming up next. But first, we're going to hear about our friends at BetOnline.
BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find league reviews and news on every league, including Major League Baseball, and all the info leading up to the upcoming NFL, NBA, and NHL seasons. They even cover combat sports, esports, and golf, too. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, from live betting to scores, podcasts, and more. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports and events. Head to BetOnline to the BetOnline website today, or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today. BetOnline, where the game starts.
So the Sabres picked Matthew Savoie in the draft this year, who's somebody that we talked a lot about on the show as a possibility for the Flyers. We were maybe hoping they would take a chance on him, being a little bit of a smaller guy. What is your take on the pick, and how do you think he fits into the Sabres' depth right now?
I love that pick. I think when I was sitting down with Russ, geez, it was like a month before the draft. I think it was you're rolling through Buffalo for some stuff. Yeah. We got talking, and you had mentioned, I believe it was you had mentioned that Savoie might slip down the board.
I did,
and that Buffalo was sort of interested.
In
and
position.
I was like, they got it. I was like, that's the guy to take. Like, if he falls into your lap, that's the guy you got to grab, because the talent's outstanding. The skill is outstanding. The speed's great. I know the size worries people, but I don't know, man. If you're 5'9" and you can fill the net, who cares?
Right.
Like,
Connor Bedard's 5'9". Nobody's going to talk about his size the whole year.
Exactly. Nobody. You know, and like, I mean, I think the only question is he going to be a center or a winger?
Right.
But I mean, I don't know. The way it works in Buffalo right now, it's kind of interchangeable parts, because they've got so many centers right now that they're going to have to play one or two of them on the wing. I mean, and I'm talking like right now, never mind like 2 years in the future, or next year when it's Savoie's time to be a Sabre. But I don't know, a guy that can play the way he does. Size doesn't matter to me. It's that he can play, and he's tremendously talented. I think it was a great pickup for them, because the way Kevin Adams and the scouting group have worked the last couple of years, they've been stressing skill and ability and upside potential. Like the way it seemed to work in the past, that they were like, well, this guy's pretty good right now, against 18-year-olds. Like, well, how does he project? Where does that work down the road? And for a lot of those guys, they didn't project down the road at all. Like, they barely made it out of juniors, or they barely made it out of college. And they may have peaked in the AHL if they even made it that far. So the changes they've made with their philosophy on how to draft and who to draft and what to do is a lot more interesting. It's a lot more fun, because before you're just kind of like, oh, okay, no, that guy was okay, I guess. You get those 3rd, 4th round picks where it's just kind of like, all right, well, I guess maybe he'll be a Rochester guy in 3 years, but it's a lot more interesting now, and I like what they've done. But Savoie. Geez, Savoie. It's weird. I haven't talked a lot about Savoie because I've been way more interested in one of their other 1st-round picks this year. But Savoie, I think that's just accepting that Savoie is going to be a really, really good player, and then you start looking at some of the other guys and going like, I think they might have got another really good one here too, maybe 2 of them.
Yeah, they may have gotten 2 really good ones, but yeah, I think Savoie will be tremendous for them. Let's talk Eric Comrie for a minute, because this is a guy that I know about. It's interesting because for a while his trajectory was very high. Like, he actually, what's really funny is on his when he played for a team called like the LA Selects, there was a year that he and Thatcher Demko were on the same team, and he was thought to be ahead of Thatcher Demko in sort of the race for, the next good young goalie. And of course, Comrie had sort of, I don't even want to say missteps. He just didn't really develop quickly. And now, the Sabres have him. And I think he's where he is. I think for whatever reason, he can handle the NHL backup job. And so I kind of wonder, what do you think his role is there game-wise? Like, how many games? Because, again, he's got an opportunity to play more than most because of the starting goalie, being a little older with Craig Anderson.
Yeah. The weird thing about how they've operated with goaltending is that if Comrie doesn't work out, Kevin Adams is going to get a lot of heat for that, because goaltending is something they've just kind of been a little ill prepared, maybe a little bit surprised by how things went. I think they basically counted on Linus Ullmark coming back last year, and I think they thought they had a deal, like they had a deal in the bag that like he was going to come back in, and then Boston offered him 4 years and he was gone, and they were like, oh no, what do we do? And then you get Anderson, you get Aaron Dell, and then things just kind of went sideways from there. Anderson, they absolutely love him. He's classic, great in the room guy. He's good for being around younger goalies. I think part of the idea was bringing him in was to have him maybe work with Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen a little bit and maybe help getting him acclimated. But that things got different there. Luukkonen had a terrible camp last year, and rightfully went back to Rochester. I get it. But in Comrie's case, I think this is a very educated, not a guess, but like this is an educated possibility on their part, because you look at the other free agent goalies that were out there. These were either older guys that maybe got a year left, maybe don't have anything left in them. And if Anderson's your main guy, well, I think the most you want him playing is 30 games. In Anderson's case, I think that's the most you want to go. But
just to add one thing, because I had found something in one of my old articles. So Comrie actually in the 15 World Juniors was the starting goalie, and he was playing against Demko, who was the starting goalie, and they both grew up in LA, which in California, even though Comrie's a Canadian citizen now. And he was then, but you know how it is. They do those things all the time. But it's interesting because that's where he was at. Like in 2015, that's where he was at. I mean, he's not that old. I mean, I think this is a decent gamble by Adams.
Yeah, I think this only happens because he was able to play like 19, 20 games last year and showed that he could play pretty well. It's tough. It's tough to be the backup in a situation like Winnipeg, because Connor Hellebuck he's outstanding, but also he's going to play almost every game. Like that guy wants to play 65, 70 games. Goalies probably shouldn't do that, but like he's the kind of guy that like doesn't mind doing it and feels okay doing it. So, maybe that's on coaching's fault for not, giving him a little bit more rest. But hey, hard to argue with the guy that won the Vezina, 2 years ago, and say like, well, maybe they're not doing it right. Okay, whatever. But Comrie took advantage of that opportunity. I look at, he got bounced around on waivers a couple of times, and it's not because he did poorly. It's just he barely played.
Right.
And sometimes you just, you run out of room, or you got to do something else with something, or, maybe he gets hurt at the wrong time, or it could have been his time to play some, and then he's out of the mix. And then
there's only 64 of these jobs,
Right. So to me, this is an educated, and not a guess, but it's an educated move on the educated gamble. Because you saw what he could do last year. You've got a good idea, and you compare him to like some of the older free agent guys that are available. It's like, well, we don't know for sure what those guys have left. We have a decent idea of what Comrie might be able to do, and he's younger. He hasn't had any, serious injury issues. It's worth a shot. And if it doesn't work, it's only a 2-year commitment, and maybe, Devin Levy's coming in, next year to take the job away, or, what have you. But yeah, I like the move. I hope it's not one that if it turns out poorly, people just bury him over, bury everybody about it. Cause what else are you going to do? They weren't making it. They weren't trading prospects to get a goalie. Like that wasn't happening. They weren't going to eat $10 million to take Bob away from Florida. Like so much of these other ideas that, were kicked around online were just like, no, they're not doing that. There's so much about how the way the Sabres
unrealistic.
Yeah, like there's so much about the way the
you're
Sabres
saying Twitter can be unrealistic. Is that what you're saying?
Listen, I'm waiting for the hot take to go off again saying that, but it's the Sabres are like, they're mysterious, but like there's a lot of things about them right now that's very easy to see. Like there's just moves they aren't going to do, and dropping a ton of money to bring in a goal, dropping prospects to bring in a goalie, that was not one of the moves that they were going to do.
So a guy you got to see a lot of on Buffalo, who's now with the Flyers, Rasmus Ristolainen, and always a great topic of conversation. We did a deep dive on his season on Monday's show, but we're just curious about your perspective if you got to see him on the Flyers and how you think that transition went for him.
I did watch. I had to watch him on the Flyers. I had to see.
Of course you did.
I had to see how it was going to go. I had a pretty good feeling of how it was going to go, and I think it met those expectations, which is not a positive thing for the Flyers. Because to me, I love Risto. As a dude, he's just a super guy. He's very quirky. He's funny. I don't know. I know, basically been watching this kid since he was 19 years old, since he came over to North America. Like it's very weird to watch a guy go from that to like what he is now and have it just be kind of like, he's okay. But it's very weird that he became an instant guy that was thrown into like those advanced stat versus normal stat wars online. Because advanced stat people were pointing out very clear evidence that like this dude can't hack it. To which, I'm guilty of giving him kind of a pass for that. I was like, listen, he played on one of the worst teams ever put together on ice. And yeah, of course his numbers were terrible. They were getting outshot every night, 90 to 25. Like, I'm talking shot attempts, not like shots on goal. Shots on goal, that was maybe like, 1 out of every 30 games they're getting outshot like that. But shot attempts, like they were one of the worst shot attempt differential teams of all time. Which is staggering to watch. And he played 20 minutes a night on that team. So of course he got buried. Of course he looked like crap. And he, unfortunately for him and for Buffalo and maybe even for Philly, he learned there was a lot of habits that he picked up at that time that he hasn't given up, because you get playing one way, then you get paid $5 million a year after playing that way. It's like, well, what do I got to change? What am I doing different? Like I can't change because this is what got me, this is what got me here. But playing for Ted Nolan, another guy that I love. Ted Style was died and lived in the mid 90s. It was not meant to be around in 2015, 2014. When you're asking your defenseman to not skate the puck out of the zone, you're asking them to dump it off the glass and get it out all the time, you're going to pick up terrible habits. And I think that's what's happened to Risto. And, but he tries so hard. He's never going to be at fault for not, for lacking effort. Like that is never going to be his case. And it's weird because early on in his career, like there would be he'd make a mistake, very obvious mistake. And you could bank on it. He would never make that mistake again. Ever, the rest of the season, you'd never see him do that particular thing ever again. It just wouldn't happen. Mm-hmm. Whereas now it's, reading where, the defense is supposed to go, reading how offenses attack, all those kinds of things. I think he struggles with that. But if it's like go out, hit people, take shots, yeah, he's got it. Like he's got it down. But for more elaborate sort of plans and whatnot, I don't know, man. I like him so much that I want to see him succeed, but I took no pride in being like, I know exactly how this is going to work in Philly, and see it play out exactly that way. I was like, well, I was right, but I hate that I was right.
Well, what if Torts fixes him?
That's what is going to make him worth watching again this year. Because all I can think of is how Torts made Anton Stralman a fantastic defenseman.
Yeah, the Leafs hated him.
They hate him because he didn't play any defense, because all he wanted to do was play on offense, score points, and do that. He didn't give a crap about playing defense. No. And then he became one of the best defenders in the league.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's nuts that it was like
it is nuts.
like flipping a switch. He just went like that. So I imagine with the investment that they've put into Risto and the work that in the minutes he plays, all that stuff. Now, Torts has got his hands full because he's got to work on like 3 different guys. Just on the back line. Well, I mean, guys, they're very concerned, like Provorov, Ristolainen, Sanheim, maybe. I don't know. Like
a little bit on Sanheim.
Yeah, I mean, at least like, I'm happy for Cam York that York's going to at least get to work with him right away. Like that'll keep the bad habits out of his game. But
we're hoping, yeah,
right. But I think with Risto, if anybody can address and fix how he's going to play the game, it's Torts. And I know the Torts thing is very hot button. I know we've had those conversations 1,000 times with other teams about Torts. But if he can get through to guys, that those lessons stay with those guys forever, and they're better players for it. And I really want Risto to be one of those guys because all the pieces are there, like the physical, the size, the strength, his shot. He can handle the puck. All that stuff is there. It's just it doesn't all come together on the same night too often.
All right, that is part 1 of our conversation with Joe Yerdon. We'll have the other half where we talk more about the Flyers and Chuck Fletcher and the state of things. Again, really great conversation. So we wanted to bring you the whole thing. We will wrap up with our Flyers fun thing. And it's been sort of Reading Royals themed recently with their new jerseys that are gorgeous. We just talked about Hayden Hodgson, who spent some time with the Royals. Well, this time I was absolutely floored when they announced their opening night festivities for the Royals this season, October 29th. They are having an outdoor concert and block party with the Spin Doctors. Like, how fun is that?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, that city knows how to rock. I've been there a few times for different shows, and I do like the song "Was a Pocket Full of Kryptonite," and they have a few others. They really rock out. I mean, this is great. This is terrific for fans. What a great idea.
Little Miss can't be wrong,
Mhm.
as they say. All right. That will do it for today's show. Again, we'll be back on Friday with more conversation with Joe Yerdon. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. You can send in your mailbag questions via Twitter at Locked On Flyers, or you can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
You made us your first listen today. Now, for your second listen, go check out the Ultimate Pro Football Preview for 2022, an 8-episode extravaganza to get you ready for this NFL season. Local team experts from the Locked On Podcast Network and Odyssey NFL insiders are coming together in one Ultimate NFL preview. Search for Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022 on your Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Have a great day.